Hi. Could you just, let me, I'll do that right there. Yeah, that's perfect. Hi. Welcome to the lowest level of the Lewis and Clark Trail Museum. Now this room is called the Bannon room. It's entirely dedicated to the last lynching in North Dakota back in 1930. It's the story of Charles Bannon. Now every story must begin at the beginning. And ours begins with introducing you to who all's involved. In the center there you can see Charles Bannon himself, the accused. Over to the right, Sheriff Charles Jacobson, also known as the sheriff. That's what I'll mainly be referring to him as. And then the tallest in the picture is the deputy. And then over to the left is the state's attorney. Now, in order for somebody to be lynched, they have to be accused of a crime. So what crime was Charles Bannon accused of? He was in fact accused of killing an entire family. And he was, spoilers, guilty. But how did it begin? Well, he was working for the Haven family as a farmhand when he got in an altercation with the youngest son. Sadly, this altercation ended in Charles Bannon taking the young boy's life. Instead of fessing up to this, he killed the rest of the family, including their infant daughter. But that's not where the tragedy ends. Instead of fessing up to his crimes, he covered it up, along with his mother and father. The father, who was in Oregon at the time, Mr. James Bannon, would send letters back to Charles, addressed by Albert Haven, who was the father of the household, saying that Charles was now in charge of the Haven family residence, and the mother helped come up with many of the lies that Charles would spin during the investigation. Lies after lies after lies until finally they were fed up. The sheriff eventually discovered the bodies in their actual farm. So you can see the farmhouse right there that Charles Bannon was staying in, and pictures of members of the Haven family, including the youngest daughter. And you can see where they eventually found the Haven family. Charles again did not fess up to his crime. Instead, he tried to flee the state and go into Montana over the Fairview Bridge, a bridge that you can still actually walk across to this day. But they did actually catch him well on the bridge, and they brought him back to Schaefer, North Dakota, where all of this happened. Eventually, he was then taken to Bismarck in Wofford City, in that area, and he was found guilty of the crimes. They also ended up catching his father, James Bannon, who's right here, for conspiracy to commit, and therefore also for covering up the crime. They tried to get his mother as well, but she had committed suicide by this point in time. Now, once they brought him back and he was found guilty, they put him back into the Schaefer jail cell along with his father. And the people were furious. They wanted him dead for what he did. So we move over to here. The jail cell door was on Charles Bannon's jail cell. This is the real one. They found him and they ripped the door off of its hinges while they held the deputy that was on staff at gunpoint, as represented by this mannequin here. Now, the sheriff was at home with his wife at the time, and they were also held at gunpoint during this entire altercation. They attempted to bring Charles Bannon back to the Haven family household to lynch him there. However, the person that was now taking care of the farmstead refused, shot a shotgun in the air, and scared them all off. So, they brought him to the Schaefer Bridge, as represented by that bridge up there. And we do actually have a photograph of it over here. It is no longer standing, but they tied a noose around his neck and threw him off, killing him. Over here you can see the sheriff holding the rope that was used, as well as holding up the mask that was worn by one of the members of the mob that had killed Charles Bannon. To this day, the identity of any member of the mob is still unknown. And thus ends the story of Charles Bannon. But what about his father, James Bannon? So we're going to move back over to this picture of him here. So James Bannon was still in the jail cell after they removed his son. He was then found guilty of conspiracy to commit and given the opportunity of a plea deal. He could serve 3 years in prison for conspiracy and covering up the crime if he pled guilty. And they had ample evidence in order for him to do so. However, he refused. After this, his son was lynched, and the people saw that lynching Charles Bannon was not justice, it was revenge. So they wanted appropriate justice. And because James Bannon assisted in covering up the crimes, they felt that he deserved to have the sentence that his son deserved. And so he served life in prison without possibility of parole. There's a lot more to see in this room than just that, but I don't want to bore you in this video. Of course, if you're watching this, you're likely going to come in and see it for yourself, where you can see all these amazing things that you have just sitting here, including a newspaper from the day that they got new developments in the Haven case. So this was the morning that Charles Bannon was taken to be lynched, so it wasn't in the paper yet. We also have a shotgun, a breech shotgun, and then a lever action rifle, as well as a flintlock pistol. And then we have cigarette tobacco, a World War I trench lighter, a tear gas shotgun shell, as well as a flashlight, and actual compilations of North Dakota state laws in 1913. All that and so much more can be found here at the Lewis and Clark Trail Museum.